Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Louis Theater Company artist interview. I have a very special guest. He is a teacher. He's a professor. He's a piano player. He's an organist. He does it all. Please give a very warm welcome to Cecil Abhishek. Of
Wonderful to be here, William. Thank you.
course, man. Yeah. Give a warm welcome. Everything. So, did you grow up in India? How'd you start your little life at?
So, a major part of my life has been in India. So, I grew up amidst my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother. And each of them, in particular, my mom has been very instrumental in raising me to be a good human being and a musician. So, in India, I think this is something which most people might be aware by now, but we place equal emphasis upon academics as well as on extracurricular activities. So in my case, it was no different either. So while my inclination was always towards music, because I must credit music for being what I am as a human being, because if it was not for music, I probably would have been some sort of a barbarian, to be frank. Of course, my mom saved me, music saved me, so I have lots of people to thank. God saved me too, I must say. Uh, but anyway, all that flash forward today, I have a degree in engineering, a bachelor's degree in engineering, and a master's degree in scoring for film, television, and video games. I've worked on a few films, some commercials, composing and programming stuff and whatnot, as well as performing the piano and the flute, you know, either in live situations or studio while scoring for certain scenes and whatnot. And I might have won a few awards here and there. So on the whole, I think I've quite a bit to show, and I'm very happy with the way I'm reasonably happy, I should say, with where I am right now. But although there's lots and lots to be done, because I must say the pandemic has set many of us quite a bit back in terms of not just the career prospect, but also financially too. And I'm no different either in that regard. So there's a lot and lot of catching up to do in that regard. But thankfully, the catching up process has been a bit enjoyable. So I'm taking a few steps in my stride. So I dare say it's very good as of now at the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, it seems like you're doing a lot for yourself and everything. You're doing a lot of great things, especially with music and also engineering. Like, yeah, that's another good accomplishment with just another bell in your pocket.
Say so.
That's awesome. Yeah, what were you like as a student, like in school and stuff?
Uh, Pretty studious, I guess. I mean, I scored in my final year at school. I scored maybe around 91% in my final assessments and everything. And I was inclined towards mathematics and music. So that kind of really shaped my career path ahead too, because music is a combination of mathematics and science to an extent too, right? Like the likes of Mozart have been illustrating from various centuries until this day onwards. So I kind of, and I have a bit of perfect pitch myself too, and I can play songs
Mm.
by ear. As a matter of fact, I started playing the piano at the age of 3. So I had a bit of good ear for music and a bit of grasping capacity for whatever teachers used to say. Uh, so, I used to apply my various parts of concentration, you could say so, in terms of my studies, as well as equally in music. So that helped me both in both ways of life. But eventually, though I had both degrees in music and engineering, I eventually chose the musical path.
So what was so I heard you were saying you were perfect pitch. What's that like?
Hmm, Pretty, I really don't think too much about it to be, as a matter of fact. In fact, I did not even know what perfect pitch was until some people told me what perfect pitch is with a technical explanation and everything. But I first discovered this, when I was an organist in church. So the priest used to sing, "In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit," and this probably is an A flat. Let me just check. Oh yeah, it's an A actually. La, 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 la. Yeah. So this was an A. So I used to catch up maybe with the difference of maybe a semitone or so. And then I used to refine myself, my oral capabilities. And then one person, an elderly person, came to me and said, "You have got a good ear. Have you got perfect pitch?" I was like, "What's perfect pitch?" He laughed and he explained, and then he went on to proceed to say what's perfect pitch and absolute pitch and all the kind of stuff. And my age at that particular moment was around 9 or 10, if I remember correctly. So that's when I realized that the whole new realm in terms of music theory and performance, and there can be a marvelous fusion of both over here, which with the proper mind and the proper thinking capacity. And people usually think there's lots of complicated stuff to this, but I really don't think so. Maybe sometimes because of teachers' teaching techniques, it sometimes turns out to be a bit complicated, and there's probably a lack of encouragement or enthusiasm, maybe from the students' end or the teachers' end. But sometimes when people are left on their own, right, they can accomplish lots and lots of things on their own. So that's something which I found out for myself, and well, here I am today.
That's great. Yeah, I heard it's a really good advantage with perfect pitch. It's just hearing the notes and everything, and just makes it a lot easier and stuff. Gets a little aggravating sometimes, but yeah. That's awesome. So I've heard you did your master's at Valencia, the Berkeley Valencia College. They call it the study abroad and stuff. So what's that like in Valencia?
It's a beautiful, beautiful country. The people are awesome. And the people and the students who were there, they came from 30 different countries. So there was a whole cultural mix of people over there. And all of us bound together by one thing, namely music. In the beginning, I was pretty much at sea because that was the very first time I had actually traveled out of India. I was pretty much, shielded and protected as a child because I was an only child to my mom. And but eventually I managed to convince her that I wanted to go abroad and all that. She relented, thankfully, and I went to Spain. I found it was a beautiful country to begin with, and the amount of talent over there, not just among the students but the professors too. I particularly love the orchestration classes and the mixing and mastering classes over there. I think these two classes really made the fundamental difference for me in terms of programming music for scores, especially orchestral programming. Earlier, before I went to Berkeley, I used to think maybe scoring was something of the sort like play something on the keyboard, and when you get it right and sync it to the picture, voila, it's done. But then you come to know there's a whole new world of sample libraries out there. You can do lots of things like tweaking time signatures and whatnot. And life is not all about improvisation, because I was always good at improvisation even as a kid. So I thought maybe I should rely upon that. But then I realized, man, choosing your comfort zone and choosing to go into a bubble can do lots of harm for you, career prospects going ahead. So you need to be part of the systemic education, whatever the techniques they teach you, so that one day you can break the rules and create your own techniques. Well, that is what I did in terms of orchestration and mixing and mastering. And eventually, I developed a mastering chain of my own, of course, using the software plugins, because, the hardware stuff is very expensive for me at the moment. But the software ones are really good. And orchestration wise too, that again, my hearing capabilities have really helped me over here. So the likes of the orchestrations of John Williams, Karl Orff, Ludwig van Beethoven, and Hans Zimmer. So many of them have really, really inspired me. So maybe sometimes when people can listen to my music, they often say there's a touch of these aforementioned composers whose names I just took over there. Of course, I might be bragging a little bit over here, I guess, but still, they are my inspiration. And since the age of 3, the likes of Yanni, A.R. Rahman have to influence me in terms of, fusing various genres of music and to create a altogether whole new different sound, which is not alternative, and yet it sounds mainstream, even though it's a whole new different kind of sound. That really captivated me, and it still captivates me to this day.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm at the Boston one. I've never been to the Valencia one, so it's great that you get to share with me and everyone about Valencia. I've heard it was a beautiful campus, and I've seen
It is.
pictures of it and stuff. It's a lot
And
of
the
my
weather
friends,
awesome too. It is.
a lot of my friends that go over there and stuff. So it's wonderful. Yeah. So what's it like for you in the music industry currently?
Yeah. So that's a bit of a loaded answer but on the whole, it's been a very learning, enriching experience, I should say. So my trace with the music industry began with education, as a matter of fact, around 2010 or something like that, when I began informally teaching students free of cost. People used to appear for examinations from these piano boards like the Trinity College and ABRSM and whatnot. So I began training the students. And in the process, I began to brush up my own music theory as well. So, and then my mom bought me a Core Chronos X synthesizer workstation. And that was really the part wherein my production levels went on to a whole new different zone. Mind you, at that particular juncture, I did not yet possess a MacBook Pro or something of that sort. So I was just using my synthesizer, my core to, produce and this kind of things. So, but anyway, all said and done, it's been a pretty good, worthwhile journey in terms of the music industry, because these two equipments, right? They really form the backbone of you as a music producer and a composer. And that is before the stuff, the various other stuff such as the mastering chain or the audio interface, what kind of models you're using, all that comes into the picture. So eventually I went to Berkeley, and then I got in touch with Mr. Julius Fakian, who composed for various Bollywood movies like Tigers in the Hair, Boom 3, and recently there was this movie called 1983. I think he was nominated for a Filmfare Award for that. So he was very gracious enough to give me a chance. And if at all, I had the joy of seeing my name in the end credits over there as a music programmer and as an additional composer. I have every reason to thank him. And then this went on from 2017 to 2019. And then the pandemic struck. And by that time, I was already back in Hyderabad, where I'm right now. And that was a very challenging period. Without going too much into the details, it was challenging in every way. The work prospects almost dried up. Financially, I was nearly broke. And yet, it took me every ounce of my determination to, stick to music, because there were times wherein I actually considered maybe, retraining in terms of my engineering degree, because as I told you, I already have an engineering degree, because the brain was really inclined towards that while the heart was saying, no, just wait it out and see. So eventually I thought, let me wait it out and see, and use this time as an opportunity to brush up your music programming skills. So what I did was, in 2016, I was already in touch with the music production library called Velvet Green Music. So I was composing for various cues. So they used to give me a cue, a theme, and they used to give me directions as to how long it should be, and in this how the music should sound in what zone and whatnot. So I used to make use of those cues, and I used to volunteer sometimes myself that I want to do this particular cue and that particular cue. So that year, I ended up making maybe 10 to 12 cues. And each cue took me 1 or 2 days on an average. And they range from various genres such as classical, hybrid orchestral, EDM. These are my primary genres, and by the way. But that particular period really improved my music programming skills. And I'm really grateful for that because from the subsequent years, from 2021 onwards, the results started to manifest themselves. So the various clients eventually started coming in because I was using the work which I produced for Velvet Dream Music as as my demo reel because the productions and the mastering work done was pretty good in their opinion too, by the way. So I made a demo reel of the works which I done for Velvet Dream Music and began submitting to various clients. And then they slowly started pouring in. The money started also coming, filling up, and everything. And eventually, by 2022, what happened was, well, eventually received a nomination at the Hollywood Music and Media Awards, one for a composition called Honor Those Who Died, which incidentally was composed for Velvet Dream Music. And the other nomination was for Best Music in a Commercial, which happened to be for Shiseido, which I done in tandem with Ritz Hiraga, who was from Tokyo, Japan. So I'm very happy that I eventually chose music because I was almost inclined to, put music on a break, on the back burner, and try something else, as a salary job, profession, so to speak. But eventually, I'm glad I did not do that.
Good. Yeah, definitely. Is there like any like music we would like to check out, like in the movies and stuff?
Oh yeah. So
That
there
was
are a
from
few.
you.
Mhm. So there are a few movies which I have composed for as an additional composer, though mainly. So if you check out my IMDb, there's and by the way, the IMDb profile, the I have composed a song, as a matter of fact, for a Spanish animated movie called Palomitas. This was way back when I was a student at Berkeley. This was a student project, but somehow the soundtrack of this movie, there were 5 composers in total, and I was tasked with, writing, producing, mixing, mastering the song, and the vocals were done by a very talented colleague called Salia Wong. She was she did the vocals for that particular song. But anyway, the song was written in a gibberish kind of a language, where I provided English subtitles to it, and the director really loved it, and he chose to retain the song exactly as it was in the demo. Maybe, but with the exception of we had to shorten it up to 1 minute. So that was done, and my 4 other colleagues too contributed to various aspects of the soundtrack, and it turns out it won plenty of awards in terms of best music at various film festivals in Spain. So that's that for the music composing part. And I've also composed for 3 other commercials, and all 3 of them are, from the Japanese commercials. One is, of course, for Nico, the other is for Shiseido Revital, and there's another third one which I've just completed a few days back, last week to be precise. So it's for a breakfast commercial, but each and every one of them has been absolute fun to work with. Right from the conception stuff to the mastering stage, it's been a dream run to go through the whole process. And when the client says approved, there's no other greater joy one composer can feel out of it. So, all in all, I've also done work as an additional composer, as an assistant composer to Mr. Julius Parkin, whom I mentioned before, upon Bollywood movies such as Tiger Zinda Hai, Bharat, Saira Narsimha Reddy, and Houseful 4. So my work over here ranged as an additional composer to orchestrator, and I also used to play the flute and the piano wherever appropriate. So this is a pretty, I think I'm talking a bit too much over here, but this is a pretty lengthy summary of my of my music, okay, my musical journey and my association with the music industry.
That's wonderful. I like just a lot of stuff with the movies and music and everything. Just definitely we give a lot of credit to you and everything, just writing everything down and putting it out and doing all of your efforts with the movies and everything. Trying to make the movies with the music and everything. Like music is a very important thing with movies, and you've done it all and everything. So yeah, thank you for doing that. Such a big pleasure to just listen to wonderful orchestrated music and movies. Just great thing. That's awesome. So tell us your history about the instruments you play. Like how'd you get to playing your instruments and stuff?
So my music has been in my family, so I got it from my grandfather, who used to play the veena, and he had an inclination for stringed instruments. And my uncle, he had an inclination towards percussive instruments. So I was around 3 years old when I first started playing the keyboard and the piano. So my mom somehow found me playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on a very toy piano using those numbers, 1 1 5 5 6 6 5. Somehow she said I had managed to figure out those numbers and the frequencies on my own and had correlated them in such a way. Because I think any kid can be able to do that. When kids are left on their own, right, they can achieve things which adults usually don't think they're capable of. So sometimes this worked in people's lives who I know personally too, and it did in my case as well. So the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, my mom heard it, and that was a very toy piano, and she was, very happy and very, surprised, amazed at it. And but then she realized I too was inclined towards music, like my grandfather, and she bought me a bigger piano within 2 days. I mean, not exactly a piano, but a keyboard kind of thing. I graduated from 1 octave to maybe 2.5 octaves that particular day. So, and then eventually went up to 3 octaves and 5 octaves. But, and then finally, it was, and with the piano interspersed in between too. And meanwhile, it was not just at home. The priest, the parish priest at a particular church where I used to go, he came home and saw me playing, and even though I was pretty young at the time, he suggested that I actually begin playing for mass and lead the choir with, upon the organ. So I said yes, and I began doing that, and that was when I discovered about my oral capabilities too. And eventually, I realized there's something more to this to life than also, you want to graduate from one level to the other and then the other. And then someone told me there are also music exams too. And you also need to learn to read music notation. Right now, you're just playing, raw in a raw kind of a manner without any technical knowledge and so on and so forth. And then began at the age of 9 my studies in, my piano studies, and I began appearing for grades and with the Trinity College affiliated board. And those people used to come to India and to my city, on a bi-yearly or tri-yearly basis, thrice a year. And I used to appear for these exams. And eventually, and the piano is the only instrument wherein I happened to gain a licentiate diploma in piano performance. But the piano apart, I also play the flute, the drum, a bit of guitar, percussion, and I do a bit of singing too. So I do not have a formal qualification in these instruments. However, the flute, somehow, the director of a particular movie called Bharat, I performed the demo for a particular sequence, and the director happened to be impressed by that flute playing, so he suggested that why not use the very same samples and re-record it using the same instrument, the same musician. So I was very excited and said, sure, why not? And then that became something of a full-time thing too, playing the flute. So the flute I'm talking about is the bansuri, the Indian bamboo flute played by the likes of Hari Prasad Chauratia and other legendary people from India. So that's the kind of flute I play over here. It's very easy to pick up. The only technique is, to pick up is the blowing thing. And once you pick up how to blow through the flute, the rest of it comes automatically to you. The same case was with me. Once I discovered the blowing techniques, the rest of them came automatically to me too. So all in all, I consider myself a pianist, a flutist, a vocalist, and a composer for sure.
Nice. Yeah, you're doing a lot. You're doing, yeah, flute, piano. You said you were an organist and you were vocalist, composer, like just we're not worthy.
I
You
think
got
I'm
it all.
talking a bit. I think I'm talking a lot over here, I guess.
And then like, yeah, just when you were saying perfect pitch and stuff, that's it comes easy with especially piano because you can hear the notes and just makes it a lot easier. Just perfect pitch is like a big thing while you're it's good. Very, very wonderful.
Mhm.
So yeah, you worked on our I was talking to Lily, our CEO, and she was saying you worked with one of our plays.
Yes, I did. So
Like
yeah. So the play was called, "We Are the Mass Incarcerators," I believe. And
Oscar.
Lily and I had discussed about it during our very first interview, if I'm not mistaken. So my first interview consisted, actually I interviewed as a teacher purely because I wanted to teach piano and keyboard. And then one thing led to another. It was a wonderful interview which I had over there. And then we began talking about other things. And eventually we came to the subject about a particular play, a theatrical play. We Are the Mass Incarcerated. So I volunteered saying that maybe I would like to help out with the title theme and so on and so forth. And then Lily shared the script of the play, and she had already given me an overview of what the play was about, and I knew immediately that it was going to be very powerful because that what's going on in the play is very much happening in the real world as we speak right now, is that it? So the, the the horrible happenings of the horrible forms of abuse taking place and occurring, maybe through drugs or whatever kind of abuse. I read the script too, and immediately the wheels in my head started churning, and the pain and everything discussed eventually drove me to arrange a particular rendition of Days of Our Lives. So the Days of Our Lives, which was suggested by Lily herself. So the idea was to make this song a 1 minute version, but to make it sound different and dark and maybe with with an eerie kind of a rendition over here. Because you're talking as though everything's over here, everything's wonderful and whatnot, but something, somewhere, some sort of a darkness is lurking behind us. So the Days of Our Life seemed to be, a perfect selection for this, and we arranged it. The whole process, by the way, took just 4 hours because there was plenty of creative stimulation in this particular play. It took me just 4 hours right from the arrangement to the mastering stage, and I believe it was approved the very next day by Lily, and so. I'm very happy to have been part of this project, and I hope it does wonders. And use, I hope it's useful to the play, and it does leave a mark over there as well.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Our plays are pretty interesting. I think I did one part in the play and it's just very, very dark and dramatic and all that stuff. It's gotta have your emotions in it and stuff. And
It certainly does.
so especially with music, if you write music, same thing. You gotta have the darkness, the scary. So yeah, it's like I'm saying, music is an emotion too. So so yeah. So let's go to one of your videos. Would you like to talk about the first one?
Videos. Uh-huh. Maybe how about Maverick's World?
Yeah, about the work.
So this one was my final project for Berklee College of Music, my final project at my master's level. So it was recorded at the Air Studios, London, and it was performed by a whole 50-piece orchestra. And I was really determined to, make the very best use out of it. Not just in grabbing that epic sound, but I also wanted to sample some few strings at the very end section as well. So the sound is quite, a bit Cimmerian in terms of that it's also in D minor, and there's a, tempo changes between 90 BPM to 120 and back to 90. So it was inspired by my mom's struggles in life, the various sacrifices she had made for me. You know, she's the reason that, I'm able to stand on my 2 feet if there's any decency as a human being left in me, it's all thanks to her. She's the reason I'm actually even alive today. So I wrote this song as a testament to my mother's sacrifices. The whole composition and orchestration thing was done in one day. So maybe we can listen to it, I guess, and maybe let the listener decide if it's good or not. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're going to put out the video. Hope you all enjoy. All right, we are back. Wonderful video you made about your work, and definitely, yeah, we were just awesome with writing music for the world and for movies, and we get to listen to your wonderful orchestration, and also just like you were saying earlier about your mom having the reason for you to be who you are and everything, and then just having a whole family of musicians definitely helps you out with your journey and everything. Like
It
just
does.
having your whole life about music, it's just it definitely makes it a lot easier and everything. So yeah, great video. That wonderful video about work and about just music and everything. So awesome. So let's go to your teaching. So what do you usually teach when you teach?
So I primarily teach the piano, and additionally, I also teach music theory and music production too. But it's piano which I mostly teach nowadays, both in online as well as in person. So my students range from ages of 7 to the late 40s, and sometimes in the late 50s and 60s as well, but they are very rare. It's usually ranging from 7 to 40, and it's a piano. And now I have always been determined to be a good teacher because my mom and my aunt, they were teachers too. Not music teachers, but they taught social studies, English, and commerce in high school and college. So that was another way wherein I wanted to live up to them. And I chose music to, even to make my mom and my aunt proud, and so to speak. So I began teaching in an informal, as I mentioned earlier, I began teaching students in an informal capacity, mainly for the initial graders who were appearing for piano examinations. And that began and eventually grew from initial grades to the intermediate grades, which is grade 5 and grade 6. And by the time I went to Berkeley, I was working as a graduate assistant in the music technology labs. So, wherein I was supposed to guide the students in terms of navigating the different digital audio workstations, the different shortcuts you need to use, and sometimes when people slip up in using the equipment or in terms of music theory. So, my job was supposed to, our job, I wasn't the only in music, the grad assistant over there. Our job was supposed to be to guide them in terms of, and most of them were, by the way, students as much as I was. So, and after my tenure at Berkeley ended, I soon went to Furtado's, wherein, thanks to the significant experience I gained over there, I began to work there as an academic mentor, which meant that I used to hold one-on-one sessions with teachers and students to, as a qualitative assessor in terms of where they particularly stand, what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, and then match them to the relevant grade student, and based on the capabilities and their prowesses on whatever instrument they play. So my journey with Furtado's went on for a couple of years, and then I ventured wholly into film production for a couple of years till the pandemic ended. Sorry, yeah, till the pandemic ended. And from 2021 onwards, I began teaching in an online mode. Again, piano, music theory, and production. Production, on the other hand, this is a bit of an ask because sometimes children may be tech savvy or may not be tech savvy. And the same applies to adults too. So you need to, demonstrate ourselves using a free app which you download from the Android Google Play Store. And we just use maybe a Band Lab or an FL Studio free version, the one with the limited features, but even they work as well from a classroom point of scenario. So I use them and also encourage students to brush up on the music theory, because that's where the oral skills also eventually come into the picture. So eventually people start correlating things on their own. So instead of me spoon feeding things to them one thing at a time, they already want to go right ahead on their own, and becomes very, very easier, which is exactly what I want for my students to take the initiative so that they are very clear headed as to where they want to be in terms of a professional perspective in their musical careers. And I'm very happy to note that Some of them are really shining, taking their own initiatives, and not just at piano but also at music theory. Yeah, they're doing very, very well. I've heard last time I inquired about my students.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Also, yeah, with teaching, just definitely, if you see students like learning and being happy and everything, definitely brings a smile to your face and everything. And definitely, yeah, just being for students who inspire you and, well, yeah, inspire you, you inspire them and stuff. So
They inspire me too. The
exactly.
unbridled joy and enthusiasm, right? That's something which we need to retain till the end of our lives as musicians. Without enthusiasm, the going becomes very tough, in my opinion. You'd agree too.
Yeah. Um, Also, just with educators, what can we do better? Like there's not a lot of normal people. There's people like veterans. There's students with autism. I'm one of them. Individual like low income and stuff. Is there any way like we can go around that and stuff?
Yeah. So I had a couple of students with autism themselves, and they were ambidextrous. I mean, one of them was ambidextrous, and the other had absolute pitch as well. And they were really, so what you need to do in terms of people with, who are gifted in their own different ways. So you want to tweak the teaching methods so as to, to keep their attention span, because attention span is one of the most important criteria for the students to keep themselves held up through the entire class. Because you don't want to make the class feel like a class, but something which is much more hands-on in nature. So you take a song which the student might like, and you tweak it so that the student comes up with their own rendition of it. And then you break down what the student has done, and then you ask them, can you replicate it for another different song? And then the wheels start churning, and they immediately start correlating, and eventually the notion of quarter note, half note, and all those different concepts of note values and the different notes themselves start forming into mind. But the broader picture you mentioned was how to make them accessible to different sectors of society, like the people who are, autistic or veterans and all that. I would say, you know, sometimes we need to reach out ourselves to people, inquire maybe through online polls or maybe going to them in person. Sometimes both works. I think the personal touch works, of course, but sometimes, some on account of certain constraints, we might need to reach out to them via online methods. And you might also need to be prepared to not to work without accepting any pay. Once you get through that barrier, the barrier of selflessness, then I think the real difference starts to manifest itself. That's number one. Number two would be choosing the right teaching method in order to cater to the particular student. Now we are talking about extraordinary people over here. So the conventional methods may or may not work, right? So like I said, you want to take their favorite songs and try and build it up and break them down. I would ask them to make up. Like for example, there was a particular student who had no notion about note values and stuff, or even basic chords. But by the end of the half an hour session, he was playing, this particular song by Bill Withers. Sometimes in my life, Lean on Me. Yeah, Lean on Me is the song. By the end of it,
Oh,
yep,
yeah.
he actually started playing that song, the entire chorus. It's actually pretty easy to play. C, D, D, F, G, C, D, E, F, F, E, D, C. So, students, you want to explain chords in a very fun manner. For instance, take the 5 fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Play 1, 3, 5. The thumb on the C. Now play 1, C, 1, 3, 5. They play C, E, G. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. G, F, E, D, C. Now play 1, 3, 5 together at the same time. That you got the C major chord. That's how they get the notion of chords over there. And then eventually they learn about inversions and whatnot. And then I ask them to move the inversions from one position to the other. And then that's how this particular student got the Lean on Me song within half an hour without not having taken any formal lessons. So it's all about finding the right approach to the student. And above all, you want to keep the student's attention span arrested throughout the lesson. When the student loses the attention span, that's when you know, as a teacher, you might have lost.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful method and stuff. I do agree with like using the song and stuff because yeah, you grew up your whole life like, especially like if you're in a car and the radio's on when you're a little baby, you consume that music and stuff. So one of the main things with yeah, like you were saying, just play a song and stuff. Like include a song in that you know when you're first developing yourself, and like when you're like a little like I've heard like when you're a little baby and stuff, you can't even see, but you can hear first. So music is basically the main thing of your life. You can hear it anywhere, and just using a song that you know, it will definitely help the students out, especially people that think differently, like autism. It's not, I'm not saying like, yeah, autism is not really, it is a disorder, but it's like you think differently. It's a different way of thinking and stuff.
Yeah, right. And I don't think that is necessarily a kind of a disorder. I just think of it as, as if some people are more orderly than the rest of us. And that makes me want to respect them even more. So it's not really a disorder, per se, in my opinion. They are blessed, in my opinion.
Yep. So let's go to the other videos about yourself. So would you like to talk a little bit about that?
The other videos?
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about the video?
Oh, the Air Studios one, right?
Yeah, the one about yourself.
The couple of videos which okay, fine. Oh, that one.
Mhm.
All right. So I did mention one video about my, about my bio data, and the other one about my my work and my, my basically it was about my excerpts about my work, right? So I think it's pretty much covered in the earlier stages, but nevertheless, what happened during my work stages was, let me give you an example about what the music industry might expect from you in terms of your expertise and how sometimes volatile it can get. So there's a particular piece of mine called Blood Rush. I think I mentioned about it in my video, right? So that was initially composed for a movie called Saira Narsimha, because this movie was an epic movie and it had lots of action, lots of thrills. And the director asked us to come up with a hardcore epic version of a theme, which is it was purely orchestral, by the way. And so this was done in a day, entirely again, and from the composition, the programming, and the mastering stage, it was done in a day. So and we submitted it to the director. He was thrilled. But then suddenly what happened was the song actually got rejected because the director had changed his mind at the last moment, and he had heard a reference which somehow seemed to fit in with the frame even better, according to him, than the piece which I had come up with, Blood Rush. And the particular piece happened to be in an entirely different musical zone over there. So eventually what happened was my supervisor, so my music supervisor was there with me, he suggested that we use this particular theme for another movie which also had themes of both epic instruments over there, not epic instruments, whose theme was of an epic nature, reincarnation. So naturally there was going to be lots of bombastic music. So let's try and use this theme over there And somehow at that particular moment, I knew it was not going to work because this movie was actually a comedy movie. Whereas I had composed a particular theme, keeping a very serious and dark action movie in mind. How was this going to work over there? But nevertheless, they are my seniors. You have got to listen to them. And I went ahead and did a few tweaks and then submitted to them. Then the feedback came. The director was very, very, very disappointed, which I submitted. Disappointed. And I wasn't surprised because it was obviously not appropriate for the particular movie. But still, it's never a good feeling to hear such discouraging feedback when you have immersed yourself, your entire heart and soul into making this particular piece. But somehow I realized, it might have got its own day. So I kept that particular piece at the back burner. And this was all in 2019, by the way. So for 4 years, it remained in the back burner until February 2023. I decided, why not release it independently on my own? So I decided to remix, add a couple of extra tracks to Blood Rush, and remaster it once again using a different enhanced mastering chain of my own. And I released it and streamed it and decided, why not submit to one of these reputed awards ceremonies? So my eye fell upon the Hollywood Independent Music Awards because I've already been nominated the previous year before. So I thought, why not apply for this year too? So I applied, and 6 months later, I find out that Blood Rush has been nominated under the Best Instrumental category.
Awesome.
And this particular piece, I'm really proud of it because right from the compositional stage to the mastering stage, I had done it single-handedly on my own using samples, using my own mastering chain. So forgive me if I'm bragging over here, but doing things on your own, because of course there's nothing like having a real orchestra playing. The the goosebumps that you feel when the real orchestra is playing is entirely something else. But sometimes you have to choose other alternatives, right, in order to make certain things happen. So I'm really proud that my music programming skills, I was able to improve them to a certain extent, make them, make my orchestral sampling skills sound a bit more larger than life than I really had hoped for. And I'm actually glad it culminated in it being nominated. Now, whether I will win or not, only time will tell, and only the jury will be able to give a decision upon that. But all in all, being nominated too, it's a good sign that your skills, with your skill set and with your efforts, you are headed in the right direction. So that's the story about Blood Rush. There's lots of disappointments you might encounter, but the key is to, use those disappointments to your advantage. You might not, some of us might get it right away. Some of us might struggle with that notion. And I was among the ones who had struggled with that particular notion because it takes lots of practice and lots of mental preparation. But eventually you do get that. And once you get that, navigating the music industry is going to be a piece of cake.
Yeah, you're not the only one that gets crashed and burned sometimes. Everybody will probably say the same thing about their own things and stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, nobody's perfect or anything like that. There's going to be some ups and downs and stuff. But yeah, just getting nominated, that's a huge accomplishment and everything. So you just getting that and like there's no bragging at this point. Like you've worked this hard to get there and stuff. So it's like you should be confident about talking about like, yeah, I did that. It's a big thing and stuff. Getting nominated and getting awards from it it definitely helps you out. And yeah, there's no there's not a lot of like nothing's all good or anything like that. There's going to be some errors or bad things and stuff, but you just gotta change it to positive and you learn from that. That's called learning and fixing it and then boom, you still got
Exactly.
nominated.
Yeah,
So doesn't matter at this point. So
hardly.
yeah, so let's go to the video. Hopefully y'all enjoy. We are back. What interests me about this video is that with doing orchestrations, just it adds the feeling of the movie or the show or the comedy show, make it even funnier, make it even sadder, make it even more loving, make just all that. So,
Absolutely.
what are some of your dream artists to work with? Who who are some of your dream artists that you would like to work with?
For some reason, Prince somehow brings to my mind at this particular moment. I mean, I was going to say Queen, sometimes A.R. Rahman might have said a particular thing, and maybe, there's a thing called Lucky Ali right here. But sometimes, but at this particular moment, Prince comes to my mind. The reason being, I think he was way ahead of even today's times in terms of his understanding of music. Like, take for example, When Doves Cry. The lack of any bass in that particular song still bamboozles me to this very day. The only low frequency sounds in that particular song came from the kick drum. And yet the entirety of the song, it just transports you to some kind of otherworldly aura, which is full of pep and zest, and yet somehow keeps ethereally floated or something so to say. It's just, hard to describe in words the kind of aura this song really creates. But it's not just When Doves Cry. Could be, Let's Go Crazy, the Bad Dance, in the 1989 Batman movie, which Prince composed. That guy was way ahead of today's times. In fact, when I listened to Daft Punk's music, I found lots of Prince's influences in Daft Punk's music over there. So, of course, people like me, we look up to Daft Punk and we look up to Prince, and I would really love to have a piece of of the brilliant minds as to what inspires them to, say for example, take away the bass from that particular song, or maybe add that particular thing. over there, and why that particular song composed in this particular scale. There's so many fascinating things to ask them, every nuances and all the minor details. I think they would be really, maybe they might be, bugged off by the end of it. So, but you know what? They did they did wonders for the field of music. I mean, they created stuff in a way that was not altogether, that was, that was new, but it did not sound, but it was new, but still it was, still considered mainstream. That's not an easy thing to achieve, in my opinion, because usually people classify something which sounds new as alternative for some unfair reason, which I really do not agree with. But there are some things which are really, when you listen to it, it sounds new, which is unheard of in terms of the context of instruments, the combination, and the arrangements or whatever. And yet it somehow managed to sound entirely mainstream. Prince was one of those absolutely talented artists. And, the kind of brainwaves which went through his mind while conceiving these songs, most of them in very short durations, how he managed to pick them all up within such short durations, how his process and all that. Much has been written, but still, I would love to, have a piece of his mind about that.
Yeah, Prince is an absolute legend, no question. But yeah, I've researched about him. Actually, I watched a video last night, and Purple Rain was one of like the best albums with like all of the When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy, Purple Rain. There's a movie called Purple Rain.
Yeah, the same movie,
and stuff. And I've researched he plays everything. He plays piano, plays bass, guitar, vocals, drums, everything. He was super ahead of his time, and just actually my aunt, she got me into Prince, and just an absolute complete legend and stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's awesome. Love me some Prince. So what are some parting words you would like to leave our listeners with?
Nothing much flashy, because we all have had our own experience in life. But what I would like to say is, whatever you do, don't do it just for your own sake. Whatever you do, keep your family in mind, because at the end of the day, family is what matters to you the most. And then comes your dreams. And if you're able to use your dreams in order to do good for your family, there's no greater happiness than that. But sometimes the people who forego their dreams for the family, they are the people who are actually respected. Because sometimes people term them as losers, but you know what? They are far from that. They are among the bravest souls who have chosen to put their families instead of their own selfish sakes for the people, for the others, for the families respectively. All in all, keep your families in mind, whatever you do, and life is going to be enriching, really rewarding.
I love it. That's wonderful words from great great person, great instrumentalist, great musician, great movie composer, does it all. You do it all. So thank you so much, Cecil, for being part of this interview today. Thank you for being interviewed and everything, and talk about your life, your music, the movies and everything. You're very inspiring to everyone, all of your students, everyone, our viewers and everything. Incredible musician, and hope you keep on doing great things, and please keep up the good work and everything. And that'll be all for our video. If you'd like to check our lessons, go to www.louistheatercompany.org, and we'll see you guys next time.